Hi, I'm Donald McIntyre, founder of Etherplan. I research, write articles, and podcasts about Ethereum Classic, Bitcoin, and decentralized applications. This series is Getting Started with Ethereum Classic. Section Strategy and Positioning. I am going to read the article Model for an Ethereum and Ethereum Classic Collaboration. This is episode 30 of 50. Model for an Ethereum and Ethereum Classic collaboration. This article is based on a deal offered on Twitter by Virgil Griffith, Special Projects Manager of the Ethereum Foundation, where he asks Ethereum Classic ETC folks for a wish list of things Ethereum ETH could do that would benefit ETC. Below I am posting the wish list I wrote to him so I can elaborate on some of the reasons, sources of information, and ideas for such wish list, which I think is a rational way of approaching a more productive collaboration between the two ecosystems. Full thread and rationale. Quote 1. For several reasons, I think the base layer blockchain space will end up in the long run with 3 or 4 leading global chains. The share will be distributed something like this. First chain, 50%. Second, 25%. Third, 12.5%. Fourth, 6.25%. The balance may be an all the rest niche residual list. Unquote. The reason I stated the above is because blockchains have network effects, and when those externalities kick in, usually it is a winner-takes-all kind of market. This means that when the sector as a whole and some of the blockchains inside the sector individually reach a certain critical mass, they will enter a runaway growth phase in total market size and relative market share, where very few chains will be the winners, and they will likely be very big. The current period, where there is no defined winner and the general sector is still small relative to the competition and its total addressable market, is called the standards war or format war. In history, there have been many ways in which standards have been established in the market. Some examples of industries that have gone through intense standards wars with a single or very few resulting winners have been electricity alternative current versus direct current, railway gauge, Betamax versus VHS video standards, and during this information age, the browser wars and the operating systems wars, amongst many other format fights in the past. I think the most comparable products to blockchains that are sensitive to externalities are operating systems, for example Windows, Mac OS, Android, iOS, Linux, Apache, etc. This is because, in essence, notwithstanding the large efficiency differentials, both blockchains, especially Ethereum and Ethereum Classic, and operating systems serve as multi-purpose computing or computing-enabling systems across the world, where developers can create and build new applications and use cases on top. Having said the above, if we see how operating system markets are distributed today, we will see that there are always very few, usually 3 or 4, winners, and then a residual list of players who either find a niche or become irrelevant. Some examples of few winners in the consumer operating system market are desktop and laptop operating system shares, mobile operating system shares, global consumer devices combined, desktop, laptop, mobile, tablet, handheld, and TV operating systems shares. As blockchains, especially highly secure base layer chains, may be regarded as non-consumer facing but back-end computing infrastructure, I include below examples of enterprise operating systems, web server systems, and supercomputer market share data. This is enterprise server operating system market. Web server market share. Supercomputer operating system market share. As can be seen, in all operating system segments above, there are usually one or two players at the top who command the largest market shares. Then, the third and fourth players experience a significant lag, and usually, after the third and fourth players, the market shares of the remaining systems become practically insignificant. Of course, the blockchain industry is very unique because secure chains are not only analogous to a computer operating system but also contain currencies and smart contracts which represent property and agreements. However, it is safe to say that currencies in general also have network effects, either locally in their jurisdictions or globally, and that the shared internal state of secure blockchains are also environments with strong externalities. Due to the above, my guess is that after this period of standard wars, there will be very few winning blockchains, say 3 or 4, and whichever group of chains wins will have market shares roughly as operating systems I used as examples above, As a gross simplification, my guesstimate is that more or less 4 chains will win with more or less 50%, 25%, 12.5%, 6.25% of market share respectively, and all the rest the remaining 6.25%. Quote 2. I think the base layer will primarily provide high security in the form of consensus and monetary policy, unquote. As experienced during the block size debates in Bitcoin, BTC, and later seen in Ethereum with the CryptoKitties phenom, it is very difficult to scale base layer blockchains securely. This means that layer 1, L1 blockchains will have to provide basic high-value, low-volume security services such as secure transaction processing, smart contracts, and hard money-oriented monetary policy. And layer 2, L2 chains and systems will provide low-value, high-volume, and performance computing and flexible features and benefits to end users and enterprise. Quote 3. I think at least BTC and ETC are well designed and positioned to occupy the value reserve, BTC, and the Turing complete, ETC, base layer roles. I don't know what the other one's roles will be. Maybe privacy or just a diversification alternative for people and businesses like Litecoin, unquote. In the context of a few blockchains surviving at the base layer in the future, I think those select chains will have to be the ones with the strongest security features while following the most stringent blockchain principles. This means not only a sound technical design focused on trust minimization, such as the proof of work based Nakamoto consensus mechanism, but also a disciplined monetary policy. As to which blockchains will be selected in the end by the market, based on their security and specific features, it is difficult to say, but I am confident that Bitcoin will be one of those because of its size, safety, history, and significance. And Ethereum Classic as well because it is the only chain that will be proof of work, Turing complete, and have a fixed monetary policy. Quote 4. In the above scenario, a chain like Ethereum will not be able to compete as a safe base layer chain because safe enough is not an option for the use cases that require base layer security. As objective as possible social scalability through trust minimization, unquote. Ethereum is migrating to proof of stake and sharding. Proof of stake has two problems as it is built on top of two flawed arguments. That proof of work kills trees and doesn't have finality. And it is based on subjective consensus, which is precisely the opposite of what blockchains are seeking to achieve, social scalability by means of trust minimization. On the other hand, one of the bases for blockchain security is that the database has to be replicated throughout all nodes in the network. Therefore, fragmenting it using sharding unavoidably goes in the opposite direction. Due to the above, the Ethereum proof of stake plans have been widely criticized by prominent industry participants and computer scientists. This means that Ethereum does not qualify as a highly secure blockchain, therefore it cannot compete with truly safe base layer chains such as Bitcoin and Ethereum Classic. Quote 5. However, both Ethereum with its flawed strategy and Ethereum Classic with its little resources are signaling to the world that they want to be positioned in the same niche, to be the base layer secure Turing complete chain, unquote. The complementarity that may exist between Ethereum and Ethereum Classic is that Ethereum has huge resources and a large community, but is trying to position itself in a segment where it will not be able to compete in the future. Ethereum Classic, on the other hand, is well positioned and designed for the place it wants to occupy, but has little resources and a much smaller community, which may make it lag in the market. This means that there is an opportunity for collaboration in a rational way. Quote 6. I see Ethereum may have an opportunity to be a user and enterprise-facing public chain as an L2, proof of stake and sharded, scalable option if it uses chains like BTC and ETC as security providers in the back end. For example, checkpointing and monetary policy through pegging on BTC and ETC, unquote. If it's true that proof of stake and sharding are not the most secure systems for the base layer blockchains, but that those systems offer much higher performance, then Ethereum can perfectly be a consumer and enterprise-facing blockchain, providing the features and benefits such users need, but at the same time securing their accounts, balances, and smart contracts by using the services of chains such as Bitcoin and Ethereum Classic for finality and hard money. Quote 7. There are like 10 or 15, I lost count, other Ethereum compatible proof of stake sharded governance and invention of the day chains in the market. If Ethereum and ETC can formulate and agree on a clear strategy as above and communicate it effectively, then all the other chains would become obsolete, unquote. In the context of standards wars, as described in the first part of this article, the market needs to eventually decide on a format to minimize coordination and mental costs. For that, users monitor signals from the potential providers to see if they are meeting the desired requirements to become such standards. Important signals are that the technology is correctly designed to satisfy security and performance needs, that liquidity is growing in the form of other users adopting the standard, and that the format has a true chance of becoming the winner. A clear strategy that would leverage the advantages of both ETH and ETC chains would go a long way assuring users, while all other competing or substitute alternatives would become much less relevant in front of such advancements. Quote 8. This is because currently we are in standards war. However, if ETH and ETC can coordinate to be truly complementary chains, security provider plus performance provider, one on top of the other, with clear roles and value added, then that would be the definitive winning signal to the market, unquote. Ethereum's roadmap already includes a vertical fragmentation of the blockchain into shards and horizontal subdivision in layers with a beacon chain at the base, shards in the middle, and Raiden and/or plasma layers on top, where these two last ones are the final solutions to consumer and enterprise scalability in the medium to long term. Since a proof of stake beacon chain will not be sufficiently secure to support the whole structure above, note it's a security consideration, not scalability. Either it could be replaced with pegging shards directly to Ethereum Classic, or the beacon chain itself could be pegged to ETC to obtain the security services of proof of work and fixed monetary policy base layer. That is a smart and rational design choice that Ethereum engineers can analyze working together with ETC engineers while truly complementing, therefore benefiting both networks. Conclusion. Quote 9. PS. If both chains continue to try to be the base layer secure Turing complete chains, then they will continue to compete for their life in this standards war, together with all the other imitators, because very few, if not one or two, in this segment will survive. Unquote. The current state of affairs is that there are a lot of gestures and signs of collaboration between Ethereum and Ethereum Classic. However, those interactions don't seem to have a concrete vision and strategy other than trying to suck network effects from each other. To reach any specific and constructive goals for both chains. The truth is that if Ethereum and Ethereum Classic both want to be base layer networks, then one of them will likely die in the effort. Today, Ethereum has a scalability plan that is more adequate for L2 blockchains, money and community momentum. Today, Ethereum has a scalability plan that is more adequate for L2 blockchains, money, and community momentum, while ETC has the correct design, security, and monetary policy. A sincere and much more productive plan and future can be envisioned if they leverage their strengths. Thank you very much.